Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's update, we're going to take a careful and grounded look at a narrative that has been circulating among Iraqi Dinar followers, particularly the idea that a potential revaluation could occur during a period of regional instability, possibly even while global attention is focused elsewhere. Now, as always on this channel, our goal is not to amplify speculation, but to break it down, examine the underlying economic realities, and understand what is actually plausible based on Iraq's financial structure, policy direction, and global economic context. Let's start by addressing the core idea in the statement, the suggestion that a revaluation of the Iraqi dinar could happen in the midst of chaos, potentially while geopolitical tensions, such as a conflict involving Iran, are dominating global headlines. This theory is built on the assumption that major financial shifts sometimes occur quietly, away from public scrutiny, and that such timing could be strategic. While it is true that governments and central banks often implement policy decisions without advance public notice, it is important to understand that a currency revaluation is not a simple or isolated action. It is deeply tied to macroeconomic fundamentals, international agreements, monetary policy frameworks, and institutional transparency. Iraq's currency system is not operating in isolation. It is connected to global financial institutions, including the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and international banking networks. Any meaningful adjustment to the value of the dinar would require coordination, preparation, and a stable economic environment to support it. Now, let's explore the geopolitical angle. Regional tensions, particularly involving neighboring countries, can absolutely influence Iraq's economy. Iraq shares economic, political, and energy ties with multiple countries in the region, including Iran. When instability rises, investors typically move towards safer assets, and emerging markets like Iraq often face increased pressure. Currency strength is generally supported by stability, not uncertainty. So the idea that a major currency move would occur during heightened regional conflict runs counter to how most central banks operate. That being said, there is a nuance here worth considering. While instability is not ideal for a revaluation, governments do sometimes take advantage of moments when global attention is focused elsewhere to implement internal reforms. However, these are usually structural or administrative changes, not dramatic shifts in currency value. A revaluation is highly visible by nature and would immediately attract global attention regardless of timing. Let's shift now to the second part of the statement, which suggests that we are very close and that there could be major movement ahead. This is where it becomes essential to separate sentiment from data. Iraq has indeed been making progress in several key economic areas. Oil revenues remain a central pillar of the economy, and periods of high oil prices have strengthened government finances. Iraq has also been working on improving its banking sector, modernizing payment systems, and increasing transparency in financial transactions. In recent years, there have been efforts to stabilize the exchange rate, reduce the gap between official and parallel market rates, and implement anti-money laundering measures. These are all positive developments, and they do lay the groundwork for a more stable and credible currency over time. However, groundwork should not be confused with immediate outcomes. Structural reforms take time to translate into measurable changes in currency valuation. Another important factor to consider is Iraq's exchange rate regime. The Iraqi dinar is not freely floating, it is managed by the Central Bank of Iraq. This means that any change in value is a deliberate policy decision, not a market-driven fluctuation. For a revaluation to occur, the central bank would need strong justification, such as sustained economic growth, low inflation, a diversified economy, and sufficient foreign reserves to defend the new rate. Speaking of reserves, Iraq has built up a relatively solid reserve position in recent years, largely due to oil exports. This is a positive sign, as foreign reserves are crucial for maintaining currency stability. However, reserves alone do not justify a sudden or large revaluation. They are one piece of a much larger puzzle that includes fiscal policy, trade balance, political stability, and investor confidence. Now let's talk about the idea of watching it unfold right before our eyes. This phrase captures a feeling that many dinar followers share. The sense that something significant is happening behind the scenes. While it is true that economic reforms can sometimes feel gradual and complex, it's important to rely on verifiable indicators rather than perception. Key indicators to watch include official statements from the Central Bank of Iraq, changes in monetary policy, updates from international financial institutions, and measurable shifts in economic performance. In the short term, what does this all mean for Iraqi dinar followers? It means maintaining a realistic perspective. There may indeed be movement in the sense of ongoing reforms, policy adjustments, and gradual improvements in the financial system. But this should not be interpreted as an imminent or guaranteed revaluation event. Short-term expectations should be grounded in observable data, not speculative timelines. In the long term, the outlook for Iraq's economy has both opportunities and challenges. On the positive side, Iraq has significant natural resources, a strategic geographic position, and a young population that could drive future growth. With continued investment in infrastructure, diversification away from oil dependency, and improvements in governance could strengthen the economy over time. On the other hand, challenges remain. Political stability is still evolving, institutional capacity needs strengthening, and economic diversification is a work in progress. These factors all play a role in determining the strength and stability of the national currency. A sustainable increase in the value of the dinar would require consistent progress across these areas, not just isolated developments. It's also worth mentioning the role of global economic conditions. Currency values are influenced not only by domestic factors, but also by international trends. Interest rates, global demand for oil, trade dynamics, and geopolitical developments all interact to shape the economic environment in which Iraq operates. This interconnectedness makes it unlikely that a major currency shift would occur in isolation or without broader context. As a financial news analyst, it's important to emphasize that while optimism can be motivating, it must be balanced with critical thinking. Statements suggesting that a revaluation could happen suddenly during a period of chaos should be approached with caution. They are not supported by the typical behavior of central banks or the requirements of modern financial systems. At the same time, it is fair to acknowledge that Iraq is on a path of gradual economic development. Progress may not always be fast or dramatic, but incremental improvements can build a stronger foundation over time. For those following the Iraqi dinar, the key is to stay informed, focus on credible sources, and understand the broader economic context rather than relying on isolated claims. In conclusion, the idea that a revaluation could occur quietly during a time of geopolitical distraction is an interesting theory, but it does not align well with the realities of how currency systems operate. While there may be ongoing developments within Iraq's economy, any significant change in the value of the dinar would require clear economic justification, institutional readiness, and a stable environment to support it. Thank you for watching, and if you want to stay updated with responsible, factual, and balanced analysis on the Iraqi dinar and Iraq's economy, make sure to subscribe to the channel. This content is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice.